A very warm welcome today on a cold day, I imagine, in many parts of where you might listen to this, to my daily inspiration, my reading of John's Gospel. Today, Tuesday, February 9, we read John 13. So, from the New English Bible, as always, I read from the first verse, the whole chapter, John 13. It was before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that his hour had come and he must leave this world and go to the Father. He had always loved his own who were in the world, and now he was to show the full extent of his love. The devil had already put into the mind of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. During supper, Jesus, well aware that the Father had entrusted everything to him, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from the table, laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, tied it round him. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel. When it was Simon Peter's turn, Peter said to him, "You, Lord, washing my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not understand now what I am doing, but one day you will." Peter said, "I will never let you wash my feet." "If I do not wash you," Jesus replied, "you are not in fellowship with me." "Then, Lord," said Simon Peter, "not my feet only, wash my hands and head as well." Jesus said, "A man who has bathed needs no further washing. He is altogether clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." He added the words, "not every one of you," because he knew who was going to betray him. After washing their feet and taking his garments again, he sat down. "Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked. "You call me Master and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Then if I, your Lord and Master, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. I have set you an example. You are to do as I have done for you. In very truth, I tell you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor a messenger than the one who sent him. If you know this, happy are you if you act upon it. I am not speaking about all of you. I know whom I have chosen. But there is a text of Scripture to be fulfilled. He who eats bread with me has turned against me. I tell you this now before the event, so that when it happens you may believe that I am what I am. In very truth, I tell you, he who receives any messenger of mine receives me. Receiving me, he receives the one who sent me." After saying this, Jesus exclaimed in deep agitation of spirit, "In truth, in very truth, I tell you, one of you is going to betray me." The disciples looked at one another in bewilderment. Whom could he be speaking of? One of them, the disciple he loved, was reclining close beside Jesus. So Simon Peter nodded to him and said, "Ask who it is he means." That disciple, as he reclined, leaned back close to Jesus and asked, "Lord, who is it?" Jesus replied, "It is the man to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish." Then, after dipping in the dish, he took it out and gave it to Judas, son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas had received it, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, "Do quickly what you have to do." No one at the table understood what he meant by this. Some supposed that as Judas was in charge of the common purse, Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the festival, or to make some gift to the poor. As soon as Judas had received the bread, he went out. It was night. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man is glorified, and in him God is glorified. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and he will glorify him now. My children, for a little longer I am with you. Then you will look for me, and as I told the Jews, I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment: love one another. As I have loved you, so you are to love one another. If there is this love among you, then all will know that you are my disciples." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus replied, "Where I am going you cannot follow me now, but one day you will." Peter said, "Lord, why cannot I follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Jesus answered, "Will you indeed lay down your life for me? I tell you in very truth, before the cock crows, you will have denied me 3 times. This is John 13. An interesting aspect of it is that John's Gospel does not relate the Last Supper, but in John 13, this pretty much is the setting of the Last Supper, shortly before the final part of the Passion of Jesus takes place. I'm saying the final part because, of course, the Passion of Jesus started way earlier than the last few days in Jerusalem, as we have heard again and again during the reading of John's Gospel. Already in John 5, there was severe opposition and the plan to kill Jesus. So the question of opposition is part of the whole ministry of Jesus, not only in the last few weeks and days. Anyway, so in this setting where the Synoptic Gospels relate the Last Supper, John's Gospel relates the story of the foot washing, this famous event when Jesus bows down and washes the feet of his disciples. And there is an interesting suggestion in the literature on John's Gospel, because people, of course, ask why is it, or why might it have been that John does not relate the final, or the Last Supper, but instead the foot washing. And one theory suggests that it might well have been because after so many years, after a few decades of the Christian movement, the question who actually can administer the Lord's Supper, who is in charge of giving bread and wine, and whether this is a question of the hierarchy of early church development, and that there might have been already fights and discussions and all sorts of difficult things surrounding the Lord's Supper, that John decided, I will not relate the Last Supper, but I will relate Jesus serving his disciples, in order to make the point, especially the Lord's Supper is not about hierarchy and ranks and who is worthy to administer the bread and the wine, but he reminds the Christians that the spirit of Jesus is the spirit of serving and not the spirit of high-mindedness and of divisions and of hierarchical things. So anyway, it's just a suggestion, but of course the question is there: why do we not have the Last Supper, the story of the Last Supper in John's Gospel, but instead the foot washing? Maybe you think about it today. I wish you a very good day, and I see you tomorrow. Bye bye.